The Just Baseball Show is live. Thank you all so much for joining us, whether it's audio-wise on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Also with our friends on YouTube and X, or with us on SportsGrid. Jack McMullen, Aram Leighton, Peyton Genus hanging out with you. A couple of things that we got to get to right away. Tarik Skubal, obviously arthroscopic surgery to address loose bodies in his elbow. It is tough. There are some really interesting rotation decisions that are looming and a couple of debuts or recalls that we want to talk about here. As always, the Just Baseball Show is presented by the great folks at BetMGM. And how about some onomatopoeia at the outset? Crack. That's the sound of the bat hitting the baseball and a reward being dropped into your account. Take a swing each day for our free-to-play game. If you get a hit, you'll score a reward, depending on whether your hit was a single, double, triple, or home run. This game is exclusively available at BetMGM. How it works: play as the batter, select an area of the strike zone. If you get a hit, you win a prize. You could win a $50 bonus bet, an odds boost token, a parlay boost token, or a same-game parlay boost token. So again, play with our friends at BetMGM. Aram Leighton, bad news. Sad news, bad news on Tarik Skubal as it relates to the Tigers ace and the back-to-back Cy Young Award winner in the American League. Evan Petzold initially reported that Tarik Skubal is undergoing surgery and arthroscopic surgery for loose bodies in his left elbow. So there's no UCL tear. There's no UCL damage. It is the sake of safety. And this is a 3 to 3.5 month process. Typically, it's very similar to what Edwin Diaz underwent, about 2 weeks ago for the LA Dodgers. But Tarik Skubal, this, I guess, reigns on the parade of not only his quest for 3 straight Cy Young Awards in the American League, which is unheard of. It also reigns on his possible payday. And I'm curious, where you initially went when you saw this Skubal loose body surgery news.
I guess just like another guy, because it's interesting. I feel like we've had a disproportionate amount of loose body specific injuries this year, at least on notable arms, than we've had in recent years. And I mean, I know we're always going to have the Tommy John situation, but I just think it's interesting. And this is obviously way better in the grand scheme. This is somewhat of an inevitability. You throw enough times, little fragments are going to chip off. And I think the biggest part is catching that early so that those fragments don't then impede, ligaments or create other issues as well. And I think pitchers are just so in tune with their arms at this point, and teams are so cautious from, just mitigating injury that if something feels a little bit off, they're checking it out. So maybe these, bone fragments, bone chips are being picked up sooner, than we have seen in the past. But the first thing I went to was the free agency side of things. And maybe it says a lot about us. We're just thinking about money, right? And even other people's money. But I just think after the whole arbitration side of things, and the potential that Tarik Skubal could be the highest paid pitcher in Major League Baseball history here, that was just the first thing that I went to mentally. But more so in the respect that, if I were a team and I had the money, would it change anything for me? And the answer is pretty much no. I'd try to leverage it, to maybe save a few bucks. But does loose bodies change much for you with Tarik Skubal, given, what he's shown us, if he comes out the other side and continues to throw the way that, we assume he will?
I guess it would need to be performance dependent. To your point, if he comes out the other side and looks like Tarik Skubal and he's running it up to 100 miles an hour in big moments, which he does constantly, I think I have no problem still paying him. The question is, does this concern and injury and elbow issue and surgery in a walk year impact the 450 that he was getting? He's still going to be the highest paid pitcher of all time, I think. He's going to clear $350 million. But did this cost him $100 million? Did it get him from 450 to 350? 350 is still a ton of money, folks, and it's still more than Yamamoto got over 13 years or 12 years for Yoshinobu Yamamoto. But it's not 450. We're talking about leaving $100 million on the table, and we talk about swings like that all the time. Chris Bryant had a resurgent year in a walk year, and he probably net himself $100 million in free agency. Framber Valdez, with that Cesar Salazar cross-up, probably cost himself 2 years on a contract and probably north of $50 million. With this, I understand that it is a minor procedure relative to other elbow procedures, but at the end of the day, I just wonder if it costs him $100 million based on the ludicrous numbers that we were talking about.
Well, and to your point, I mean, he underwent Tommy John surgery in college, if I'm not mistaken, and then had flexor surgery in 2022. So this would be the third elbow surgery. And I don't think that it makes it creates a huge concern for Skubal in terms of how he's going to be through the next handful of prime years. I think he's going to be just fine. But we're talking about a guy that's going to be, 30 years old as he hits free agency here. And the numbers that we've been hearing and have been thrown out have been starting with a 4 with Skubal. And so, just the more we flesh out this conversation, the more I do think it could impact things a little bit, just because anytime you go under the knife for a third time on that elbow, even if, the latter 2 surgeries have been more minor, it still is 3 surgeries there. So I think it's interesting. It's going to be fascinating to see how teams, approach that, because at the end of the day, I think you feel really good about Tarik Skubal coming back and being himself. And again, this in a vacuum here is minor. And since then, he's never really had any blips since that flexor. But at the same time, again, 3 times under the knife, other side of 30, I think teams may start to tread a little bit more lightly, with what kind of contract they throw his way.
I want to pivot to the Tiger conversation now, because this supremely impacts the Detroit Tigers in 2026. And this is Skubal's walk year. This is, in all likelihood, the last year that Tarik Skubal is playing for the Detroit Tigers and is an employee of the Detroit Tigers. He's making $32 million this year. He won his arbitration case. So you are financially, obviously, attached to him, but it's not like anything was going to happen there. If the Tigers season does go south and Skubal comes back, it likely lines up for him to come back after the trade deadline. So it's not like you could recoup and get a king's ransom for Skubal if things were to go south. The other thing is, if you are in contention, which we assume the Detroit Tigers will be, we're talking about an entire summer effectively without the best pitcher in baseball. And there is a lot of reliance on Framber Valdez and Jack Flaherty and Casey Mize and Kader Montero. How comfortable do you feel with that if you're AJ Hinch? I think this is a bigger blow than really any other superstar going down. Acuna's on the IL. I think the Braves are built better to steady the ship than Detroit is without Tarik Skubal.
I mean, I think it's a fair point, because, you look at the way the rotation is shaken out behind him. I mean, aside from Framber, being really solid overall, and Kader Montero being, I think the emergent back end of the rotation, he's pitching better than that, but looking like a guy that by the end of the year, you say that's a good 4 for us. Yeah, I mean, Skubal's been the guy that you can really count on to go out there and win you ball games, whether the offense is performing or not. And it feels like the offense is just picking up. I was just talking about in the weekend roundup. I feel like things are starting to come together here for, this Tigers team. You have Melton on rehab. Looks like he could be joining the team sooner rather than later. That would have been in a bullpen role. Now you wonder if it's weird that I don't know if you can mess with that too much, because he's coming off of elbow inflammation. You don't want to just throw him into the fire, but what kind of role do you then have Melton come into? Jackson Job's not going to be back until the end of the year, if that. So you got to be careful there. And then I think you have a lot of importance placed now on Casey Mize and him coming back from that strained groin. So look, I still think this team's going to be able to hang around, because this division is just not looking great right now. And I think no matter what, they're going to be buyers for that reason, knowing that their deadline acquisition, as everyone's going to say, is going to be getting Skubal back. But yeah, I mean, this is where Framber needs to step up big time. And again, I know he's been good, but Framber needs to pitch like the guy that, we've seen from him in previous years, in Houston, and really kind of be that de facto ace. And it doesn't even have to be fully de facto. We've seen this guy pitch like an ace. So I that's where my mind goes immediately. But then also, fortunately, Ty Madden looked great in those 5 innings filling in. And that's a guy that they're going to need to go out there and throw for them. But I look at the IL and say, that's where the life raft is right now. I mean, just at Mize, you're not going to have Olsen this year, but Melton, eventually Job, and Justin Verlander, all of a sudden, those innings are kind of important, because, I mean, with how bad Jack Flaherty has looked right now, can't even throw strikes. There's a real scenario. Justin Verlander is a better option for you than Jack Flaherty.
Yeah, there is 100% a real possibility that is the case. But again, Tarik Skubal undergoes arthroscopic surgery to address loose bodies at his elbow. It's going to be 3 months-ish for the reigning back-to-back Cy Young Award winner in the American League. On a quick search, it seems like the only guys to win 3 straight Cy Youngs, Randy Johnson and Greg Maddux. Maddux did it 92, 93, 94, 95, 4 straight years. Same with Randy Johnson, 99, 2000, 2001, in 2002. Even Sandy Koufax had a year in there where he did not win a Cy Young. Back with more on the JB Show next.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Manager, hitting coach, bench coach, assistant hitting coach, third base coach, hitting strategy, and game planner here. It's almost like a line change in hockey, Craig.
Some of these questions that have to be asked, Donnie, would be, what did you think a month ago, Donnie, right? Like right before the season started, did you think that these coaches were the answer to your season? Because if not, why did you wait all off season to make a change like that?
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Teams are going to be tanking. Now, instead of 14 tanking, 18 will be tanking. You know what solves this show? Keep it at 18 teams. All 18. One ping pong ball. No more, no less. Don't care about the record. You know what that solves, Joe? Tanking. They won't tank anymore. There's no incentive to tank. This gives you incentive to tank. You idiot.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Number one, who asked for this? Nobody, but nobody asked for a bump up in the number of teams in both the men and the women's basketball tournament from 68, including the 4 play-in teams, to 76. And by the way, it looks like it is a near-done deal. ESPN and ABC News reported this morning that's very close to being done. It could be announced by the end of this week.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Just Baseball Show continues, as always, presented by the great folks at BetMGM. Jack McMullen and Aram Leighton. We just talked about Tarik Skubal undergoing surgery to address loose bodies in his left elbow. Now we want to talk about some other starting pitching decisions that are looming for a couple of teams. And first is the Marlins, second is the Mariners. I actually do want to start with Seattle because we had a great article on justbaseball.com. It was written by Matt Carroll. And it was about the tough decision that the Mariners are going to have to make when Bryce Miller comes off the shelf. Bryce Miller, the right-hander and the talented right-hander, has been making rehab starts for AAA Tacoma, and he ran it up to, I believe, 99 miles an hour in his last rehab start. Miller is coming off the shelf. Logan Evans is out for the year. He had Tommy John surgery. But you're looking at a 5-man rotation in Seattle right now that is one of the best in baseball. Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, Brian Wu, Emerson Hancock, and the big money Luis Castillo. Now, there is a glaring runt of the litter right now when you just look at 2026, and it's Castillo, who's got an ERA right around 6. The problem is Castillo is your big money guy in that rotation. So, Aram, I'll open it up to you because Matt did a great job kind of posing all 3 options. What do you do when Bryce Miller comes back?
I put this on the topic list because I wanted to open it up to you. I don't know. Seriously. It's a great problem. If you told the Mariners that Emerson Hancock was going to be this good, and they'd have to figure this out, great. But Luis Castillo is, at the end of the day, I think them struggling a little bit now puts a little bit more urgency to where it's like, we don't care as much about the emotional side of things and maybe just giving the vet the benefit of the doubt. But at the end of the day, Luis Castillo, I do think has earned the right to get back on track, because even in the last 2 years where he hasn't been the best version of himself, it's a 3.5 over 180 and 2/3 innings last year and a 3.6 over 175 and a thirds. You have to give Castillo the chance to get right. So I think 6-man, it makes the most sense, because there used to be a point where it was like, oh, you can't go an extra day without getting the ball back to Wu, or you can't go an extra day without giving the ball back to Gilbert. I don't really feel that way right now. I mean, the rotation's fine. Those guys aren't really carrying, their side of things yet. So this could be the one time where you say, let's go 6-man. Nobody's jumping off the page right now other than the guy that would have been the odd man out.
Can I tell you, I am still at that point where I can't go another day without giving Brian Wu and Logan Gilbert the baseball. Like I'm just still there right now. I need to see Brian Wu start as often as he possibly can. And you just don't have that with a 6-man rotation. With the off day that lines up pretty much every Monday or Thursday in Major League Baseball, obviously there are stretches where you do not run into an off day. But this would effectively line up for one start a week. And for me, that's just too little for like a Brian Wu and a Logan Gilbert, because those guys are borderline top 15 pitchers in all of Major League Baseball. So I look at this and I say 6-man might not be the answer. And I'll get into the Luis Castillo contract conversation here in a matter of moments. This was going to be an easy problem if Emerson Hancock did not reinvent himself. Emerson Hancock has been one of the revelations in Major League Baseball so far this season. In 2026, this guy from 24 to 26 has lowered his arm angle from 27 degrees to 12 degrees. So he went from a low 3/4 to effectively a sidearm guy, and the numbers have followed. The success has followed. Hancock, for the previous 3 seasons, a 4.8 ERA, punched out 6 hitters per 9 innings. So far in 2026, in 7 starts, had a 2.6 ERA and is punching out 10 hitters per 9 innings. You cannot take Hancock out of the rotation. I know Peter mentioned that on the weekend roundup. So what do you do when Hancock cannot come out of the rotation? I don't think the right answer is option Bryce Miller to AAA. I really don't think it is.
Especially when the rehab outings are sharp. Sorry to cut you off. He's looked good in the 2 rehab outings so far, too.
Again, he ran it up to 99 miles an hour in his last start in AAA Tacoma. So I look at the Luis Castillo contract structure, and I'm fascinated by it. And there are a couple of things here that jump off the page to me. Number one, Luis Castillo is owed a ton of money over the next couple of years. 24.1 this year, 24.1 in 2027, and he's got a vesting option at $25 million. It turns into 25 for him if he throws 180 innings in 2027. If there is a UCL injury, it's a $5 million club option. Obviously, we're not going to factor that in because we never, want to forecast anything like that. But another notable thing here is Luis Castillo had a full no-trade clause from 2023 through the end of last year. That full no-trade clause is now up. So I wonder, with the pitcher injuries that are happening right now, I get that he has a 6 ERA. I get that his fastball is being absolutely bludgeoned right now. But is someone willing to take on 80 to 100% of Luis Castillo's money over the next 2 years when you know that Luis Castillo is still in there? And he threw a ton of innings at a mid to high 3s ERA last year. He's a really good pitcher, to your point. This is not a Taijuan Walker. We're saddled with this thing right now. Yeah. It's so much better than that.
There's a path to success, whereas Taijuan Walker, it's like, if he hits every spot in that specific start, maybe you'll get through it. Whereas with Castillo, it's like he's still in there to a degree, and I think you can find it. I don't think a team's going to take that money on unless he goes on a good stretch here. Maybe there's a bad contract swap out there, but those are always much more difficult in season. That's why I just think you got to give him the opportunity to throw. And if he throws better, 1, it helps you, but 2, also can be an opportunity there to move him. And I know the other thing where the other place my mind immediately went, though, is like, well, then what if one of the guys in the rotation gets hurt and you move to Hancock? Cade Anderson is killing AA. And I thought they'd kind of take their time with him. He has been unhittable. So that's a guy, too, left-hander, that you could add to that rotation, right? An already rotation that could help them this year and could be kind of this year's Trey Savage in a way as well. So they've got a lot of options here. And I just wonder if at the end of the day, they may just have a really expensive long man, or they give him enough opportunity here in Castillo to get right. If he strings together 8 solid starts, maybe at that point you can, pivot and move him at the deadline and pay down some of that money.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see what happens there. But we've got about a minute left on this segment right now. If Luis Castillo does get dealt, obviously it comes 6 to 8 weeks down the line, like what you're talking about here. So I guess we just revisit the initial conversation, and we're going to get to the Marlin pitching situation in the next segment. If we revisit the initial conversation, do you think 6-man and limiting the Wu and Gilbert starts really is the best foot forward? Because I think that's where I'm settling right now.
I think, especially at this time of the season here, where at the end of the day, like, you want to get these guys through the season as well. And Gilbert's battled some injury stuff here and there. Kirby's battled some injury stuff here and there over the last couple of years. Brian, Wu, Gilbert, and Kirby, really all 3 of them have battled some stuff there. And Hancock's going to see a big uptick in his innings, compared to the last couple of years. So I think it's a good way to preserve. And then obviously Bryce Miller is coming off of injury. So this could be a good way to preserve these guys anyways. And then as you have the hot hand later in the year, maybe that's where you say, okay, we really need to get back to that 5-man rotation. Maybe by that time you have a little bit more clarity.
Yep. Strikeouts not stacking up for the Mariners starting rotation, but they are 14th in baseball in staff ERA. More in a moment. Next.
They've been pretty adamant that they're going to play Kirk Cousins all of the season if they can.
It's not like Mendoza's coming in as some quarterback that, he hasn't played much and he needs some time. Like, he's as ready as he's going to be, bro.
Yeah.
Like, what's going to change? It's almost like Bo Nix or something. Like, nothing was going to change. Like, the guy's played 1 million games already. He is who he is.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
If you're a loyal PGA Tour player, you should be sending a thank you card to every single guy who jumped ship. Because without Live Golf breathing down their necks, the PGA Tour would still be handing out winners' checks for barely $1 million a tournament. Live forced the establishment to finally empty their pockets and actually pay their talent.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
This isn't the best Jason Tatum series we have ever seen. It is a series that I think Boston fans will remember forever. He will remember forever because, Coach, he's really not supposed to be out there. You know what I mean? Like, this was never supposed to be a thing.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
We got a log jam up top, Joe, which basically means these are the teams we expect to make the college football playoff.
If I like, let's say, Ohio State to run it back, well, then I already know what not only am I betting them for a flyer, I'm also betting the conference to win the championship also. So there's a lot of way to correlate these future bets in college.
Prediction Markets Edge, only on SportsGrid.
Just Baseball show continues. We just talked Tarik Skubal and the Mariners. The Mariners starting pitching conundrum when Bryce Miller comes off the injured list. Bryce Miller has looked fantastic in his handful of AAA starts on rehab. And now it's time for 6 minutes on the Fightin' Fish because Joe Mack just made his debut on Monday night. Joe Mack is up. He is a top 40 prospect in baseball, according to Just Baseball. 20 walks in 24 games in AAA, and he is going to catch, in all likelihood, a new arm to the starting rotation because Chris Paddock was reportedly designated for assignment on Tuesday morning. So Mack is going to deal with a new battery mate and a battery mate that in all likelihood he was catching for the front month of the year with AAA Jacksonville. Is it going to be Braxton Garrett? Is it going to be Robbie Snelling? No idea what fills that Paddock spot in the rotation, but let's start with Mack and then let's get to the rotation. What are you looking forward to with Joe Mack? And it kind of shocker, the corresponding move was Augustin Ramirez getting optioned at AAA.
Yeah, and that was the thing that we were talking about, a little bit, I think, at the end of the last episode. Is that how the timing lined up? I'm trying to remember, or that was on the call-up maybe that we were able to discuss it. But the Marlins specifically, as good as even Liam Hicks has been, have been so bad at limiting the running game at this point that, we just had Daniel Moskis on the podcast and he talked about, the Marlins pitching coach, about how they're always trying to find edges and create value in the margins. And a place where they were hemorrhaging value on the margins was the caught stealing department and really catching nobody. So, Joe Mack is one of the best catch and throw guys in the minor leagues. And immediately I think will become one of the best catch and throw guys in the major leagues. So yes, there may be some growing pains in terms of like the swing and miss, but with Mack showing some improvements in the early going this year in AAA and showing some improvements in the plate discipline, and he's going to run into his homers. I think with what the Marlins need right now, yes, they need a little bit of offense too. But at the same time, they really need somebody that I think can help limit the running game and give them more value defensively behind the dish. And I think that's exactly what Mack's going to bring is, you send down Augustine, who's been one of the worst defensive catchers in the sport, and you bring up a guy that is the best defensive catcher in the minor leagues. I think you're going to create value right away and make the team better, in short term. And I think for Augustine, I felt like he was caught between two challenges right now where fighting so hard to improve defensively, but he also had things that he needed to improve on offensively. And both of them we're kind of falling to the wayside. So I think in AAA, in a more controlled environment, he can really focus on trying to rectify both his batted ball angles and, the defensive side of things as well. And with Mac, I think the Marlins pitching staff is going to be better off with him. And that's more of just a credit to Mac.
He's an elite communicator with the pitching staff. He is a very good framer and blocker. But to your point with the catch and throw, not only does he become one of the better catch and throw men behind a plate in Major League Baseball, I think he just becomes one of the better defensive catchers in Major League Baseball right away. Like when you watch a ball game in a vacuum, you could say, I don't think there are 5 guys better than Joe Mack behind the plate defensively. So we'll see how the offense progresses. And with Augustine, don't get it twisted. There is a world that those two coexist on that Marlins roster, where there is a kind of short platoon catching opportunity for Augustine Ramirez, and that bat can be special when the batted ball angles are right, to your point. So we'll see who Mac is catching. What you got?
I just had one more note.
Yeah.
Base stealers are 42 for 45 against the Marlins this year. Attempted base stealers.
Mac will correct that, no doubt.
That's the worst percentage in the league.
Yeah, and Mac will put a serious dent in that. There is, again, no doubt. But Joe Mack is going to be catching a different guy every 5th day, and it seems like there are 4 solidified parts in that rotation, right? Sandy and Yuri up top. Max Meyer has looked the part. Jansen Junk has been outstanding through 7 starts. I think it's like a 2.8 ERA. But now Paddock, again, reportedly being designated for assignment. You've got depth on the 40-man roster. Braxton Garrett seems like the shoe-in on the 40-man. You could also go with like a Ryan Gusto or a Blaylock. But if you were to select a contract, it seems like Robbie Snelling is next up. Snelling is last time out 5 no-hit innings with 9 punch-outs. This guy is throwing to a sub-2 ERA and has had a sub-2 ERA so far in his AAA career dating back to the back half of last year. What do you make of Snelling and Garrett, like that conversation to possibly backfill that open space vacated by Paddock?
Yeah, I was also just a quick note. I think you're seeing urgency from the Marlins here. I think they see a division that, everyone other than the Braves is struggling. And I at least how I feel in the last couple of years, I think you would have seen the Marlins a $4 million free agent, signing, maybe see it through a little bit more. But with the options that they have, just knowing that, they have better arms potentially to help them right now every 5th day. I think it was unfortunate, obviously, to see Paddock get DFA'd, but I think for Marlins fans, just seeing that level of urgency, I think consistently now through this team, even with the call-up of Mac, with these moves that they're making, I think should be, encouraging to Marlins fans that this is a team that's going to, really still try to win now. And it's not always going to be about, the development of guys. I think that was a big part of the conversation the last couple of years, but it seems like they're transitioning to trying to, push things forward a little bit more this year. I think Braxton Garrett has a chance to be really effective for the Marlins this year. And I really like Snelling. I think that, again, he's one of the best left-handed pitching prospects in baseball, and we've got him ranked really, really highly. But he's also walking a few too many guys right now, and you want him to have like that soft landing right in there. And if there wasn't Braxton Garrett, I'd say, let him go, figure it out in the major leagues. But Braxton Garrett right now, I mean, this guy's already proven that he is a quality, at least back into the rotation, big league arm. And the biggest thing with him is he's just deceptive, mixes and matches 5 pitches. But now off of this TJ, starting to throw a little bit harder. And if Braxton Garrett has another tick in there, that may change things a little bit more, where all of a sudden he's missing a couple extra bats. And all of a sudden, that pitchability blended with a little bit more stuff, I think can give you a pretty darn nasty arm. And I know he's still finding the ability to locate the same way that he was before, but I'm excited about it.
Braxton Garrett has been outstanding. Robbie Snelling has been outstanding as well. And Peyton just dropped this note to us. 18 starts in AAA for Robbie Snelling at a 1.46 ERA. We'll continue with the Just Baseball show here in a moment. Just Baseball Show continues. Reminder, the Just Baseball Show, as always, is presented by BetMGM. So the Marlins have a starting pitching debacle, but I guess it's a good problem to have when you got two guys that are absolutely shoving in AAA right now. The Mariners have marquee arm and Bryce Miller coming off the shelf. I want to pivot to the position player side because there are two guys for two very good teams in the National League that just came off the shelf. And I want to talk about kind of best path forward for the both of them. Sean Murphy, the Atlanta Braves, is officially off the shelf. Same with Jackson Chourio. He just came off the injured list on Monday. Chourio is the more simple conversation, so we can start with the Chourio conversation here. Jackson Chourio obviously was hurt in a WBC exhibition game in West Palm, playing for Team Venezuela. He kind of gutted it through the World Baseball Classic, but Chourio was out for the first month of the year. With Jackson Chourio coming off the 10-day injured list, Chourio slots in left and right, wherever you want to put him, in all likelihood in left field with Frelick holding down right. But Garrett Mitchell was off to a great start this year. Yelich is on the shelf right now, but it seems like there is a bit of an outfield surplus at the moment. The good news is Chourio and Vaughn come off the shelf at the same time. This probably is the best Brewer lineup that we have seen at this point this year, and there's still a couple games over 500.
Yeah, I think this is as exciting of an addition for the Brewers, or like as they could have, because just they've been feeling it a little bit offensively, I think, since Yelich got hurt. And you look at the home run output over the last 2 weeks. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Last 18 games, I just went from the middle of April. Everybody's played about 18 games since April 15th. The Brewers have hit 5 homers. The next least is the Giants at 11 homers. So, yeah. I mean, to be able to add Chourio and the power that he can bring. And look, we know he can be kind of streaky at points, but I think this is a guy that's going to come off and be chomping at the bit to get going. I think this is a huge addition to a Brewers team that has, again, felt it a little bit since Yelich hit the IL. This is a huge, huge return for them. And, again, I think the offense, like you said, is going to be kind of the best that it's looked in a little bit. But it just felt like before the return of Chourio and the return of Vaughn, with the Yelich injury, you're starting to look through and you're like, okay, it's Bowers to Rengifo to Hamilton to Tyler Black or Joey Ortiz, and it's we need some more guys that we can rely on here, and I think it's huge to bring in these two righties specifically as well, because I do think they were getting a little lefty heavy too.
I'm pulling out the scorebook right now. I've got the scorebook in front of me because they ran out a lineup in Miami. I want to say it was in the middle game. No, it was the last game of the series that I was like, this is kind of a white flag lineup for Milwaukee. And again, they're 2 games over 500, but they ran out Garrett Mitchell, Turang. Bryce Turang's been amazing, obviously. But then Gary Sanchez, Jake Bowers, Luis Rengifo, Brandon Lockridge, Greg Jones, Luis Matos, David Hamilton. You're just not going to win very many ball games with that as your lineup. So I mean, you run into that issue, I guess, and they were taking on Yuri Perez in that one. That was Mizorowski and Yuri. But you need William Contreras in there every day, and you need a Turang in there every day. You need a couple of other guys in there every day, and Chourio is going to be that guy that is in there literally every day.
One more note too, I'm looking at third base in an area that they're just not getting production from. Rengifo just hasn't been good. Jet Williams starting to pick it up a little bit in AAA here. He's starting to put together some good stretches, a nice handful of games here. And I think we could see him sooner rather than later as well.
So let's go to Atlanta now. How do you separate, or how do you split up the time behind the dish for Sean Murphy and Drake Baldwin? / how do you use the DH spot? Is it just going to be Baldwin?
I feel like at this point, you still want Baldwin to catch a fair amount. No, that's the interesting part to me, is even when you had Sean Murphy out, they were still DHing 3-4 times a week over the last couple weeks with Drake Baldwin. So I'd imagine, it's going to be kind of a split down the middle between catching and the DH role between both of them. And you know what? Maybe that makes some sense, because Murphy's just been so injured coming off of the hip issue, and he's obviously had a few different issues over the last handful of years. And Drake Baldwin looks like a franchise cornerstone piece potentially here at 25 years old. That, I know people might be like, oh, well, he can catch, just let him catch all the time. But this is a bat that you also really want to preserve, and you don't want this kid to fade at the end of the season. And they also didn't catch all the time last year either. So I feel like kind of a split down the middle with the two probably makes the most sense. And it seems like that's the plan. Immediately shipping Jonah Heim out of town. Like they clearly want Murphy in there, pretty regularly. And I'm sure they love the way that he works with the staff.
It's also nice to shed Marcelo Ozuna. And it's not just nice because Ozuna's been bad with the Pittsburgh Pirates, but you had a clogger in the DH spot last year. Dominic Smith, that's not the case. Dominic Smith had an amazing, amazing start to the year, but Dominic Smith is not like a aircraft carrier, got to be in there every single day kind of guy. Dominic Smith is someone that if he does need to sit on the bench for 4 straight days and he's starting to cool off a little bit, by all means, Walt Weiss can do that. So Murphy is probably the better defensive catcher, but you've got the young guy that you want to see progress in Drake Baldwin. It's just amazing that you can get both those bats in the lineup consistently. The thing about Baldwin is he's always going to hit and provide value because what he does from, and you laid this out a couple of weeks ago, from a bat to ball and power perspective, like that hybrid is really rare. With Murphy, he can run through stretches where he's not good at all offensively, but you know that he's going to hold his own defensively and he's still going to provide either zero or net positive value. I just see the catching thing as a bit more valuable with Murphy, but you run into the, I guess, issue of age with Drake Baldwin where you can't just have him DH all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny, Murphy was a better defender. I just went back to check it last year than I remembered. I mean, in blocks above average, he was a 94th percentile. Caught stealing above average. Jeez, I can't speak. He was an 89th percentile. Framing, 71st percentile. Pop time, 80th percentile. Like, so if he's grading out as a plus defender behind the dish, the aggregate value that then you're getting from your catching tandem there is huge. So I think that's the best foot forward. Yeah, you're probably going to get better defense, assuming Murphy's moving the same way that he was moving last year behind the dish, and you're going to get more offense from Drake Baldwin. So this duo, I think, really does help the team ultimately. And man, I mean, this puts them in a really good spot. Again, you're just continuing to add pieces here, and they're not done. We talked about the Kim edition, a couple guys with loose bodies coming back too in the next month or so, and then. Fortunately, Ronald Acuna Jr. doesn't seem like he'll be out for too long.
I will say this feels like the point of the program where Atlanta is tested. And Acuna is, you mentioned, won't be out for too long, but he is on the shelf with a hamstring issue. And it was scary watching it in real time because he immediately gripped at like the back of his knee. And you do not want to see that from a guy with a couple of ACL tears in his past. But mentioned Ha-Seong Kim coming back, but like Acuna goes down a couple days after Raisel Iglesias goes down with shoulder inflammation. And you've got Michael Harris missing 4 out of the last 5 and DHing in the game that he did play. Murphy just came off the shelf, which is nice, but you've got like, I guess, your first test this year when everything has gone so darn well for Walt Weiss after nothing went well in spring training. The number of like punches to the chin that Atlanta has taken over the last year and a half, and the fact that they are still upright and one of the best teams in baseball, shocks me constantly.
I know this wasn't on the docket, but Chris Sale is, I think, one of the biggest reasons why. And I know he's a little bit banged up through the last year and a half too. But when that guy was on the mound, basically was almost giving them an 80% chance to win every single time. And he's been like the equalizer for them, as so many different arms have gone down and position players have gone down. And I mean, for him to be doing what he's doing this year again, after what I thought he could be fading with the injury last year again too, only throwing 125 and 2/3 innings. We saw him fade at the end of the year. It's a matter of keeping it up through the duration of the year. But we talked about it, I think, in the off season or maybe a little bit before that Chris Sale is really just polishing off his potential, Hall of Fame resume here. He got the ERA under 3. Now it's at 2.99 on his career. And to me, this is a guy that belongs in Cooperstown. And with the way he's pitching at age 37, if he can keep this up through the year, I feel like that's just the cherry on top. And I'm sold. And I know he's got a little bit more in him. I think he wants to keep going.
What hat does he wear? White Sox hat?
Just one that's like cut up a little bit.
Yeah, like a cut up White
That's
Sox
a
hat.
great
Maybe
question.
you have like trace of Braves.
Can we put a poll in the
Yeah.
YouTube? Let's put a poll in the YouTube. What hat does Chris Sale wear in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, he played 7 years in Chicago, over 1,000 innings, over 1,100 innings with the White Sox, 6 years in Boston and 3 years in Atlanta so far. But Chris Sale approaching 60 career WAR. Just Baseball Show continues. We start to make the turn and go into the home stretch a la Golden Tempo this weekend. But next thing we got to talk about here, a White Sox. Kind of interesting that we end last segment with Chris Sale possibly going in as a White Sox. Munetaka Murakami has been the surprise in Major League Baseball to this point. And I just wanted to give you the opportunity to lay your cards on the table with Murakami for a couple of minutes here, because you had concerns. Absolutely. You also saw a path to immense big league success for Murakami. And it was the battle of floor and ceiling with Munetaka Murakami, and how many Ks is too many Ks to stomach with him. I think we're finding out. 26-year-old so far this year, through 35 ball games, not only has accumulated north of 1 BWAR already, 14 homers, 28 driven in, and 50 punch-outs, a 961 OPS, a 164 OPS plus. By the way, a double on Monday night in San Diego. It was his first double on the year, so he's got 14 homers and 1 double. And Munetaka Murakami punching out 32.5% of the time, but walking 18% of the time. And the average exit velocity is literally a hard-hit baseball. The average EV off Murakami's bat right now is 95.3 miles an hour. We're learning exactly how this type of player survives and thrives in Major League Baseball.
I love new players that kind of push the boundaries of every kind of line that we try to create of what is possible. And I think this is exactly what Murakami is doing here. Like, this is one of my favorite wait and sees, because I think what we're already learning is that he's going to get his, but we've seen power guys with huge whiff, have these torrid stretches, but can they extend them? Can they follow it up? We've had guys like Miguel Sano have full seasons that are extremely productive. Can they maintain it the next year? Sano chased a lot. Murakami doesn't. So this is such a valuable case study for I guess I think about people in law school. You learn about like legal precedent and stuff like that. Like, the Murakami precedent's going to be a fun one, because you have new barriers to reference. How low can the contact rate go if the EVs are, as elite as they are, and the chase rate is as elite as it is? Because what's really fascinating with Murakami is he's really bad outside of the zone. He's not going to spoil pitches very well. And he hedges that by not chasing. But there's the one aspect that's really glaring to me. His contact rate is 59.6% this year. And if you want to go by qualified hitters, since 2016, there's only been 4 qualified hitters, including him. So 3 qualified hitters with a contact rate below 60% that just made it through a full season. And 2 of them were in 2020. So you can't even really count that. And Keston Hiura and Miguel Sano. Sano did go crazy in that 2020 season. The only other is Joey Gallo in 2017. So essentially, for Munetaka Murakami to continue to be this good, he's going to need to continue to be just an outlier in which we've never really seen before. What I will say is, if you watch that man swing, I can subscribe to the idea that he's an outlier in the way that we have not really seen before. This is where it's difficult. Do you say, well, it's his first taste of the big leagues, the contact rate could improve? and then he's out from that, bottom qualifiers range? Or does it go the other way and you say, well, he's getting his right now, but wait till the book comes out on him a little bit more and the larger sample and all these things? It could go either way. I don't know. What's clear is this guy's going to hit enough mistakes to just be a big league bat. The one double thing is great. Like, he's got to hit bombs all the time. It's a rare archetype that I go in circles, as you can tell, as I just led you in the circles that my brain goes around here. And I don't really have a definitive answer. And I think anyone that says they do is lying to you.
Peyton, can you throw that Murakami graphic up one more time? So just overall contact rate, 59.6%. The only other full season, like you mentioned, to produce for a qualified hitter a contact rate under 60% is Joey Gallo in 2017. I have it up. Let me ask you, do you know how that 2017 season went for Joey Gallo?
He probably played pretty damn well.
In 2017, Joey Gallo was a 3-win player, hit 41 homers, and had an 870 OPS.
So that's, and I think that's a great added context to this, is with a player like Murakami. I think when you have those borderline floor contact rates, but the quality that he has, and so many people have used that of the guy that's the 20 to 30 grade hitter being well, it could be Joey Gallo, and nobody has the angles and the power and the patience that Joey Gallo had. So it's no, it won't be. And we just spam that because there's not really that many players that we can say could be that could make it work. So we remember the one guy that made it work until he didn't. This is the guy that can actually do the Joey Gallo thing and maybe do it a little bit better. So that part I think is what's exciting. I do think, though, with the territories, there's going to be months, maybe even seasons where it's damn, he's just been a disappointment this year. And then there's going to be months, maybe seasons, where he's one of the more feared power bats in baseball. And it's just going to be the way that it is. And it's so much fun. And I don't want to overanalyze it. I just think it's fascinating. And I'm just going to enjoy the ride, but I hope he just keeps doing it. I hope he creates new barriers and we have a new, qualifying floor for what, a power regular can be.
The other thing is I kind of want to shed the idea that this is like Spider-Man memeing with Kyle Schwarber. And I get why people want to do that, because Schwarber is the gold standard of power and pallet the strikeouts. Schwarber on Friday and Saturday went 0 for 8 with 8 punch-outs. But Kyle Schwarber is a guy that will flirt with 50 homers pretty much every single year. He's got 11 so far this season. I don't love the Schwarber comp because Schwarber is a more complete player in the batter's box than this.
Yeah.
But I also don't think we should have this negative stigma attached to a Joey Gallo comp. It wasn't bad for Gallo when he first came up with Texas. It got bad. And obviously recency bias will tell you that it's a crappy comp and you want this guy to finish second in MVP voting. There's a world that Murakami does not get MVP votes this year. There is a world that he gets down ballot MVP votes. And it seems like he's a shoo-in for Rookie of the Year right now. We've got about a minute left in this segment here, but I just want to shed no, not every big shortstop is Corey Seager. No, not every power guy that punches out is Kyle Schwarber, but it's okay if the comp is Gallo because Gallo had very good, very valuable seasons in baseball.
And he proved that he could do it over a large sample. I think Gallo's problem was that he lost it and he couldn't find it again. I remember watching him in Washington on the backfield, his final stop in spring training, and he was completely lost. I don't see Murakami getting there. It's a guy that's just way more familiar with his swing, and I think he's just a little bit of a better mover in the box, and I think that's where you could have that longevity. But we saw Gallo prove that you can do this over 5-6 seasons, and I think the difference between Gallo being remembered differently is just whether he had done it over 10 and he just lost it. I don't think it's because of the swing and miss. It was just what he couldn't find again.
Yep. We're going to tie a bow on the show when we come back. San Francisco has been offensively anemic at points, but the 21-year-old Eldridge back up in the big leagues. He went 0 for 2 with a walk and a K in his season debut with the Giants. Got up for a cup of coffee last year. Comes off of 30 games in Sacramento where he had 11 extra base hits, 22 driven in, and a 963 OPS. What do you expect from a young Eldridge?
This is another one. It's kind of similar to the conversation we just had. I don't know. I really hope it's good. He says in his words, he feels sexy in the box right now. Love to hear that.
Cool.
You need to be feeling sexy in the box when you get up to the big leagues. But this is another player here. Elite power. I don't need to sell you on that. Just look at him. But it's a 66% contact rate in the PCL. What is that going to translate to? I don't know. It's either going to translate to, a lot of whiff and a lot of power, or too much whiff and, not enough contact to get to the power enough. So I think it was the right time to bring him up. He's swinging it pretty well. He's still striking out 30% of the time in the PCL, but you need a spark right now. And Eldridge could very easily be that spark. But at the same time, this is another one of those prospects that, and the more I've just kind of talked to people with teams and stuff like that, is like as much on the public side as we say, like, this guy could be incredible. Yeah, teams acknowledge that, but they also acknowledge that he could whiff so much that he's not really anything at all. So that's what makes it so tough with Eldridge. But at the same time, he's 21 years old. So that even if this was a rough year at the big league level, I don't think anybody's saying like he's done. So it's a tough spot for him where come up and help us now, but you're also 21 years old. You flew through the minor leagues so quickly that the final stage of your development might have to be had at the major league level. And it might result in a couple years of just not reaching your potential. But we'll see. I do think it's going to be kind of turbulent through the first year or two for Bryce Eldridge of getting regular at-bats at the big league level. But he could be that power guy at 23 years old, 24 years old, that puts it all together. And then, you see that 40 homer upside.
Yep. Other guy that we want to talk about real quick, Jake Bennett made his major league debut for the Boston Red Sox. He was a 1-for-1 swap this offseason for Luis Perales. We were looking at this saying, why would Boston give up Perales for a guy that is more pitchability oriented like Jake Bennett? He looked good in his major league debut for the Red Sox. 5 innings, scattered 5 hits, 1 run against him. It was on a solo shot, punched out 3 and walked 2. What do you see when you look at Bennett, I guess, moving forward in the Red Sox situation?
It looks like a guy that they've optimized a little bit and looks like he could be a solid back end of the rotation starter. Look, for as brutal as I've been to Craig Breslow over the last handful of episodes, this was one of the trades that I immediately did not understand whatsoever. And Perales still working back from TJ, but Perales has not been good in AAA Rochester right now in the Nationals org. And Jake Bennett, is helping the big league team compete a little bit here and giving them a chance to win, with his first outing. I think between the pitchability, the improved stuff to where it's this more well-rounded arsenal where he's got the distinct now 4-seam, 2-seam, then he's got the curveball and a changeup that looks much improved as well. This is a legitimate 4-pitch mix, sprinkle in a cutter as a bridge as well. So you can see a 5th pitch with the extension that he has and with a little bit of deception built in. I think Bennett's going to be a solid back end of the rotation starter for them. And I think the only way that, this trade doesn't age well for them is that Perales reaches his potential. I like the chance that the Nationals took here. And I still think they're looking at the long-term, vision here with Perales. But for the Red Sox, this is them betting on an archetype of pitcher that they develop well. And, here they are, pretty immediately developing him well. They didn't do it with Harrison, but this is more of a lefty extender. Harrison wasn't as much.
Yep. Last thing that we want to talk about here, John Sterling, the longtime radio voice of the New York Yankees, unfortunately passed away at 87 years old on Monday. Outpouring of love and support for the Sterling family on Monday. He was as revered an announcer as there was in Major League Baseball. This guy was the voice of the New York Yankees on radio from 1989 through 2024. An amazing run before that, long period of time in the NBA with the Washington Bullets and the Atlanta Hawks. But John Sterling, obviously, entertainer and just an amazing announcer. And by all accounts, just a great guy. I never got the chance to personally meet John Sterling, but even growing up in Chicago, and I know Peyton growing up a Yankee fan, you growing up being aware of, Sterling and just baseball in general, like you probably felt like you knew him. He felt like he was everybody's grandfather with the way that he called a ball game. And again, entertainer first, fan of Broadway. It was a fan of like he would read novels between the innings. Just an amazing announcer, by all accounts, an amazing person, so entertaining, and a heck of a technical play-by-play announcer as well.
Well, that's the really cool part. You know, I think there's so many of these like legends that you hear about, and we talked about, like, you know, of course, Vince Scully, just the mark that they leave on baseball and what you remember when you go back at the old clips and listen back. And it felt like he was one of the last ones, you know, that you could go back and hear the old school type of ways that games were called, but still being able to call into the new school years. And Michael Kay with some incredible tributes as well to really help me kind of understand, you know, how impactful he was not only to Michael Kay, but the Yankees and baseball in general. And really cool call on the Judge homer by Michael Kay to, you know, pay homage to him.
Super cool call. Burn, baby, burn. So many amazing John Sterling calls. That is, I think, my favorite. So many others as well. But here comes the Judge. For Aram, for Peyton, I'm Jack. Thank you so much for watching the Just Baseball show today, and we will talk to you soon. Appreciate it.
Betting growth was up about 40% year over year in March. So some of that obviously was the NCAA tournament, but a lot of that is because DraftKings and FanDuel were coming to town and bringing a lot of money with them. It was about $87 million was bet in the month of March, which is not only a March record, but it's a record for Arkansas in general. And it was really interesting to note too, DraftKings and FanDuel were only active for about 12 days.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
There is a pick tonight that Gabe has that, to some degree, I find completely outrageous. Then I looked at it a second longer, and it might be a really smart angle.
I like to test them a little bit.
I like that.
To test them a little bit.
I like that a lot.
Oh, okay. You don't know? You don't know this team name? You should. You're in the sports business.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
When Ruben Bain's name got called, this is the greatest moment, one of the greatest moments of your life. You're going to look back at this tape all the time and watch when you got drafted and had his arm length. I said, are you shitting me? You're supposed to have a highlight here, not a low light. I was like, oh my God, man, that's insane. That was just incredible. And I thought it was so classless.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
You have something that does not warrant tinkering with, but you have the perfect sporting event. And all you're going to do by watering it down with more bad teams, less competitive teams, more blowouts is to ruin something that we love.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
How good does it get, SK?